Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Vet Chats, where we help veterans share their awesome stories and keep positivity going throughout the veteran community. How is everybody doing this wonderful last weekend of January? If you are celebrating dry January like our guest Jessie is, it's probably a relief, it's your last dry weekend. Hi, Jody. All right, here he is. He should be joining us any second. This is Gunnery Sergeant Jesse Esterly. He is the author of this book right here. I'm laughing because I had to laugh the entire time I was reading
Good.
it.
How are you?
Hey, Jesse, how's it going? I'm doing good. All right, it's loading. There we go. All right, thanks everyone for joining. Welcome to Vet Chats. And tonight we have an awesome guest I was just explaining. How are you doing tonight, Jesse?
Right now,
How was your weekend?
Watch the Eagles win, go to advance to the Super Bowl, so I'm pretty happy.
That's right. Yes, you're an Eagles fan. My husband's a big Eagles fan, so we just watched the game. We got some high spirits in this house. Last week was good. My dad used to be a Giants fan, so I don't really care anymore, but yeah. So what was I gonna say? All right, so here's Shannon going off. Jalen Hurts, baby. Yeah, that's exciting. That is really exciting. So, Gunnery Sergeant, let's get to you. Could you introduce yourself? Say, how'd you end up joining, a little of your history on your experience in the Marine Corps?
So I joined in 1993. I lived in a small town in Pennsylvania, rural Pennsylvania. We had more cows than we had people, and I pretty much knew growing up that I guess I should say I knew that I didn't know what I wanted to do. I couldn't see an actual career path. I didn't know what I wanted to do in college, and the military was always one of those things that just always stuck out. I was little kid playing with sticks as guns and acorns, or different stuff as bombs, and family was in the military, so it was just something I kind of decided I would much rather do that than go to college. So I joined the Marines my junior year. Did the delayed entry program. Right after I graduated high school, about a week later, I was in boot camp, and then the rest is history from there.
Yes, yeah, that's awesome. I can totally relate to the more cows than people, because I think that sums up Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, the connection's a little blurry. Can you hear me okay? Can everyone on the live hear me okay? Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So yeah, you joined and you ended up getting out and going back in. What kind of went behind that decision? Was it because you missed it, or how do you end up going back in?
I didn't really actually want to get out. When you're 18 to 21, there's so much in life that's going on, and everything. Sometimes it's hard to really, focus on the future and think about what you have. I figured out that you really do have it very well in the military compared to the civilian world. Back in the 90s, late 90s, I was married the first time. We were out in Camp Pendleton, California. We were both from the East Coast, and it was rough. Trying to live in California, Southern California, as 21-year-olds. It was just expensive. We missed our family. Didn't really get to go home and see them very often. And I had asked to put in a package to re-enlist to come to Camp Lejeune, so at least we'd be on the East Coast. She was from Illinois. I was from Pennsylvania, so it would have been much closer than California. And at the point that I was going through the reenlistment or getting out, they were short on NCOs, so I had just picked up E4s, corporal, and they basically said, no, we're not going to let you reenlist to go over to Camp Lejeune. We'd like you to stay here and deploy. And at that point, I was like, look, I'm really not interested in staying here. So we kind of made up the decision that we were going to move, east and go to Penn State University, which we never made it. We ended up getting separated on our way home. Got divorced a couple months later, and then it wasn't long after that I decided I wanted to go back on active duty.
Wow, that must have been a tough road trip.
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
So she had relatives in Arizona, and we had got into a huge fight on the way in between Arizona and her house. And so this isn't in the book, but I actually haven't really told a whole lot of people the story.
The next
But I had gotten mad, and we got into a huge fight, and I decided I needed a break. I wanted to leave the situation. I wanted to get away for a little bit, and I left. I told her I was going to go get a haircut. I went to the train station, got it, and ended up getting a bus ticket. Left the car, left everything I had, got on a bus, and I was taking a bus home. And halfway there, I was somewhere in like Cleveland, Ohio. I talked to my mom, and my mom said, yeah, I just talked to her mom, and they're going to file for a divorce tomorrow. And then it was probably about 6 months or so before we actually spoke to each other. And a lot of that was just being young, being stupid. Parents got involved, and it was, 6 months later when we actually started talking, it was like, if we would have had this conversation 6 months ago, maybe we wouldn't be getting divorced right now. We probably could have worked different things out, but, at 21, you just, we were stupid. We did stupid stuff. I don't know why. I did the typical 19-year-old, wanted to get married for the extra money to move out of the barracks. And, it just didn't work very well.
Yeah, that's something the military kind of forces you into, those marriages, those commitments when you have no business being in them. But yeah, I mean, that's, you live and you learn, and you hope the next one's better, right?
Well, I'm on my third one now, so the second one wasn't a whole lot better either.
Yes, yeah, and that's, I don't mean to like jump ahead for a second, but I like how let's explain your book a little bit. So it is it's Untold Stories of Uncle Sam's Misguided Children. So it is a collection of stories, but your story is told throughout these pages too, and it's told in like a humorous way. Did you kind of plan on telling, like, almost, sharing your story, like more personally, or did you kind of start this out as just like collecting other people's stories along
my
with yours?
best friend from high school joined the Marines with me, or I should say after me. He went to college first, got his degree, came in as an officer. But we spent a lot of time together in Camp Lejeune, and a lot of these stories that are in the first one, you'll see Ski, and that's my best friend from high school. And we kind of helped each other through a lot of hard times. We deployed to Iraq almost at the same time, so we got back at the same time. We worked together. He actually got me the job back on Camp Lejeune when I came back down. But we had always joked, someday we're going to write a book. I'm going to write a book about all the stupid shit that we did. And, at the time, you're like, who wants to read that? Why would you do? Like, I just couldn't come up with a reason, like, what? Nobody wants to read or listen to this. But yeah, that, it kind of went from there. And then when I first started the book, I really didn't want it just to be about me. I really wanted to get other people involved. And I mean, the whole reason behind the book is I wanted to get not just Marines. I know it's all centered around Marines, all the stories of Marines, but I wanted to get veterans or first responders, anybody who reads the book. I mean, we all kind of have the same, stupid sense of humor and mindset. I wanted them to get to, reach out to a friend and say, hey, this story that I read reminded me of a time that we did X, Y, and Z. And this actually all came around with COVID.
Yes.
During COVID, I have the personality type that everything is funny to me, right? That's how I deal with everything. I find humor in something, and that's just, my personality. So we got locked down, and we kind of, like everybody, we thought 2 weeks, no problem. And, after that, my wife took it really seriously. She was wiping down everything in the house, and I had no care in the world. I was doing this, what I called scaring is caring, where I would sneak up on my family and scare the shit out of them in the house. I was doing dad jokes. Yeah. I had this cooking with rum where I was just making these short little videos of me drinking while I was cooking. So I had a blast. I had fun because I got to work from home at the point, and nobody was even really working. So I would log on and, so I was having fun.
Yeah.
And the reason that I decided I was actually going to do this was we had a couple Marines who committed suicide over the first couple months, and my next door neighbor lost her brother who was in the Navy. And one of my Marines, we had a conversation about the time that we were in San Antonio, and our whole FO team got kicked out of 4 or 5 bars within a couple hours. And we barely made it back to the bus. In fact, there's a picture of us on the bus in the book, but I don't remember the bus ride back. I don't remember anything. I remember, the next memory I have is waking up that morning. But we were joking about it, and I decided I was going to write this story down just to remember it, to share with my friends. So I posted it on Facebook, and it got a lot of attention. And a lot of my Marines, they were reaching out. We were joking back and forth, and that's kind of how it all started. Hey, remember this? Hey, remember this? And I kind of said, hey, look, if one story of mine could get this much attention, to get people to, call their friends, their family, whatever, then okay, you know what? I kind of found my reason. Okay, I'm going to do this, and then I wanted to donate the proceeds to Save 22, to try and help raise awareness and funding for some of these organizations that help with sex and suicide. So that's how it came about.
Wow, I didn't know that. That is really cool. And what a great way, intention wise, to give back. And I don't think there's any better medicine than laughter, right? It's free, and it always lifts you up, it's great. And a lot of these stories, they're not just humorous. There's a lot of lessons in here too, I would say. So kind of going off that, what is the story behind the title?
So
why Born in a
for the
Bar?
Marines, the Marines that'll listen to this, that's kind of our thing. The Marine Corps always said, we were born in a bar. Ton Tavern, Philadelphia, was actually the very first, or one of the very first recruiting offices for the whole Marine Corps. So, and it just, I don't know if it's irony, or it just makes perfect sense that the Marines are the way we are, and everybody knows us the same way. And we all, just fully accept that the Marines were born in a bar, and that's how we are. And, when we, any kind of veteran or first responder, when we go out to bars, we go out to drinks or socialize with our friends, what do? We share our own stories, and we all talk about the things that we are. So it all just kind of fit into the whole concept of this book.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's not like any bars are mentioned at all. Excuse my cough. So you also actually, I'm curious. So what do you think about yourself? What personally about you kind of attracts these crazy scenarios? Was it, you can't chalk it all up to being a Marine. I feel like a lot of these you know, like other Marines don't have as many wild stories. So what about you personally?
You know,
Yeah, attracts that kind of
I like to
energy.
have fun. You know, and you can only be so, or at least for me, I can only be serious for so long, and then we just start having fun. I had a couple experiences, with my ex-wife, that really had me in a bad place, and it took, going out and socializing and doing different stuff that actually kind of brought me out, to like, hey, look, it's not the end of the world. I know it, like, getting divorced at 30, it's like, oh my God, at 30, you feel like you've wasted so much time and you don't realize how much life you have left to live. Um, yeah, yeah, you
Good
know,
to hear.
but just going out and having fun. And I think if you go out to bars and you find fun people or people who are enjoying themselves, they naturally attract other people who want to have fun. And for a lot of these stories, I have three friends, C, JP, and Pete, that we're all kind of the same. We're all the same people. We go out and just have fun and not really have a care in the world. And usually that ends up being a fun time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, once you find that crew of people, it's like I don't know, that energy kind of builds on one another, and then I feel like you also have the type of friends that make friends, so they like bring more people into the mix, and it just kind of creates its own
Yeah.
chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you also so on your website you take submissions for books, and you probably have people sending you in, they want to be in the next book because you do have a sequel to this,
Yeah.
and you're planning
Right.
on writing a
Yep.
third, correct?
Yeah. So,
So what is it like going?
no, go ahead.
Oh,
What's
go
your
ahead. So what is it like going through these submissions? Are any of them just like, okay, this is bullshit? Do you have to do any verifying?
Yeah.
Like, what's
Well,
that
I mean,
like?
with any story that we tell, I mean, some of them, you can tell that, they're embellished or, whatever. Um, but I mean, throughout, like, the military career, you always end up, when you tell the story, you tell it 100 times and it comes out 100 different ways. So, fact checking them I wasn't really into, but
Yeah.
I did get a couple stories that I'm like, this guy's full of shit. This isn't funny. This isn't, whatever. And then you kind of have to politely just
Hmm.
say, hey, look, thanks for your story. I'm gonna, I'll try and get it in, whatever. Go back and ask some, different questions. See, maybe I'm just reading it the wrong way, or, whatever. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, I've only had maybe one or two stories that didn't actually make it into the book, especially the first one, because the first one I reached out to people that I knew had great stories, or like Sergeant G, who was on here. He had a good story for one of the books, and you can tell, like, any Marine who has been in for a while, we've got at least one good story that's funny, that they like to tell. They tell all their buddies when we go out. So it wasn't, the hardest part was actually getting them to put their story down or tell it, or, write it down.
Hmm.
So a couple of them I had to make phone calls, and then I would record it, and then I would go back and transcribe it, asking questions, detailed questions, just to get some more information on it, because, some people are good at telling stories, and then other people aren't so good. They have a great story, but, maybe they're not great at telling it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my next question. Like, what is your background with writing? Because a lot of these they're pretty graphic, which is good. There's some details I didn't want to know. Like I told you before, I like to read before bed, and like
Yeah.
some of these, they're not bedtime stories. You know what I'm saying?
No, I,
So,
I was never
yeah, what's
really good in school, high school. I really didn't develop any kind of writing until the Marines, really. Attention to detail, trying to work on different things. It really kind of got started as a PFC, E2, while I was in Kings Bay. And this is a story that's not in the book either. We got arrested in Jacksonville, Florida, for being stupid, four of us. And to waste some time, we ended up spending 14 days in Duval County Jail while we were waiting for a court appearance, whatever. They ended up dropping the charges, so we had 14 days in county jail. My parents didn't find out until years later. But while we were in jail, I started writing like this. I don't want to say a diary, but I started like analyzing like everybody that was in this cell, because there was like 30 to 40 different people, and people would come in and out. And I started writing, and I kind of enjoyed it. And then when I was in Iraq, I was bored. We had just got back from Fallujah, and my best friend Ski, he was in Ramadi, and I don't know what started it, but I wrote him this email, because we could only really talk back and forth on email. And I wrote him this email about how toilet paper was the reason the world's as fucked up as it is. And I mean, it was a long email. And it's the one thing that I wish from Iraq that I could actually find, because it was on a hard drive that I saved, and I have no idea what happened to it. It's probably in a box somewhere, in one of my boxes. So, but yeah, so I wrote this, a story about it, and then I kind of got into it, and then going to college at 35, having to write, do English, learn English, and not learn English, but writing it,
Yeah.
better than I could. I got better at it, but I also had a very good editor. One of my friends, when I first posted this on Facebook, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. She actually reached out to me because she's very into the editing and that kind of thing. And I told her, I was like, Kat, listen, like, this is not like your typical book. This is, let me just send you a couple examples and just see what you think. And she called me, crying, laughing, and she was like, I don't care what this book is, I want in. And I said, okay, so she was really good. I mean, it was definitely a process, because she's a civilian, has never been in the military, never really dealt with the military, and now she's going into this language, where when I first started it, I was pretty much dead set. I was like, Kat, look, I'm leaving this as it is, because this is going to be for Marines and military. And there was a lot of changes that she made when she started making them. I was like, damn, like, you know what, you're right. The first book, I think there is 345 uses of the word fuck, right? I actually had to tone it down a little bit. And she actually removed a couple of them, because she's like, look, yeah, you just don't need it here. But I Googled the book with the most uses of the word fuck, and what I figured out is this book actually had more in it than that one did. And I kind of wanted to submit it to somebody, just so I could have that record, just so somewhere down the line somebody else could look up like which book has the uses of fuck, and my book would pop up. But I don't really know. I don't know how to do that, but Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that would be a great headliner. What was the book that you
I would
found?
have to go back and I would have to look. I can't remember it. This was 2 years ago that I looked. Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'll probably remember it right after we're done. Yeah.
I know, it's a quick Google search if anybody wants to look it up on the live. But anyhow, that would be really cool. Just to claim that, or put it in the title, or you could use that in your memes that you make.
And that's where we, my editor Kat and I kind of came up with the the back of the book and the forward. Hey, look, this book isn't for everybody. And I kind of want to put a disclaimer on my Facebook page too. Like, I get a lot of people who friend request me and I look at their profile first just to see who they are. I mean, my page is public, so I'm not really going to say, whatever. But I get a lot of like, Christians, and, they're real big into church. It's kind of like, hey, look, maybe this isn't right for you, you know?
Yes, and that leads me to my next question, because I want to know who has read this book that you didn't want to read the book.
Several people, really. So I'll tell you. So when I was first starting this, my wife was interested because she heard me on all the phone calls, and she, heard us laughing, and, like, I was so excited about it. And she said, like, hey, I'd like to read a story. I just want to see, something, that you're dealing with. And she knows, my best friend, John, JP, he was in our wedding. Ski was in our wedding. So she's heard a lot of the stories. And there was one, a story about Ski and I going to a strip club in West Virginia, and she knows this whole story. So I let her read it, and I wasn't even done with it, but I let her read it. And there's a point in here where I talk about the breasts of a Hooters girl, and I said something like, I make a comment like they were the best ones I've ever seen, and she put it down, and she was like, yeah, I don't need to read any of this. And that's kind of where it stands into that, like, who does not need to read this? My wife, your wife, whatever. And then her parents actually bought my book. And I kind of laughed because I was just like, listen, this might not be the best, for you. So we had, it made holidays interesting because, her some of her families read it, some of my families read it. My mom asked for a copy, and I said absolutely not. Yeah. But it's been interesting to find, some of the people that I didn't think would buy the book or enjoy the book have reached out and said, like, it was funny as hell, and they appreciated it. So, and in the beginning of the book, actually in the beginning of both books, I do a dedication to veterans who have committed suicide. And in the first book, I was downright, like, paranoid about the parents and mothers of these veterans reading this book and just, like, being disappointed, being appalled, whatever. And I had to, there's Melissa, she's on the board, the message board, for families of veterans. And she reached out, so she got a bunch of the names for me. And I said, I was like, listen, I really want you to make very clear to them what this book is. Like, this book is about strippers and drinking, and I don't want I don't want them to submit their name if they really don't want their veteran to be part of this. And I met up with her and a couple of the family members in DC a couple weeks after the book was first published, the first one. And they were like, look, this is exactly what our son, daughter would have wanted. This is the life that they lived. This is the communities that they were in, and this is perfect. And that, man, that was such a sigh of relief, because that was like, oh shit, like, oh my God, I'm going to have all these moms that are going to be so mad at me, but it actually turned out really well.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I could see, like, where the paranoia comes from. But also, like you said, I mean, it is so relatable. Anyone who served, I mean, and it's kind of like, yeah, it's Marine specific, but I feel like every branch, we still have that camaraderie, that drunken story, without a doubt. Everyone has a story like this, so it is so relatable, like that. But I kind of want to read the warning label right now for those on the live. Okay, so who shouldn't read this book? My pastor, my wife, your wife, officers over the rank of captain, with the exception of helo pilots, the National Guard, and those with a weak stomach and low tolerance for the four S's: swearing, strippers, stupidity, and sloppy drunkenness.
Yep.
When I read that, I just had to laugh so hard. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun just doing this and getting the stories and talking to these other veterans, these other Marines who put these stories in. I mean, for me, it was a blast. You know, I love talking about stories. I love going to bars and hanging out with my friends and my brothers and just reliving some of the stuff that we did. And some of these stories, so there's a whole lot of stories from Thailand, Okinawa, Philippines, and I didn't get to go to. I just kind of lucked out and never got there. So those stories are funnier to me than the rest of them because I never got there, but I can tell, like, I may not have been to the Philippines or Okinawa, but those stories are definitely stuff that like we did on the East Coast. We went to Tijuana, we had those, the different things. So yeah, those are great stories.
Yes, yeah, and those are ones, I mean, also like with the Navy, like they hit the ports over there. So I've heard some of those stories and just like reading them, it just like brought back memories of people telling me about their
Yeah.
West Coast deployments
Yeah.
and whatnot. Excuse me. So what is your favorite story?
Oh God.
We'll start with that out of the book, or one of your favorites.
So I think I said I think one of my favorite stories that's in the book was from San Antonio, and that's in the first one I was saying in the beginning that kind of got this whole thing started. I just gotten off of active duty. I came back to Pennsylvania, joined the reserve unit in Reading, Pennsylvania. My FO team, we all went to Fort Hood, and after 2 weeks of really not getting any good food, up on the hill, they just kind of forget about us. So, we're on our own. We had a night off at the very end, and it wasn't even really a whole night. Like, it was like 8 hours of live up. And they said, okay, well, look, you have a choice between San Antonio or Austin. And I said, yeah, you know what? I would love to go to San Antonio. The Alamo has been on my bucket list for a while. I would love to see it, right? Yeah. So our whole FO team, everybody says, all right, we're going. We're following you. We're going. So there's probably about 10 of us all together, our FO team, some comm guys, and we get there. Now the bus stops right in front of the Alamo and drops us off. Now I probably should have at that point said, hey, I'm going to go to the Alamo right here. So I'm right there, but I didn't. We had already made up our whole plan on the way there, who was getting beer, who was getting a hotel room, who was getting food. And we were like, okay, this is what's happening. So we get to the hotel, the Hilton on the Riverwalk. We got kicked out of there probably in the first 3 hours. We got a room. We had like 12 packs of beer. And there, like I said, there was a dozen of us. Within like an hour, we had all shaved, showered, and we were in the pool on the top doing chicken fights with girls that we met in the elevator on the way up. It went downhill from there. We went down to the Riverwalk. So have you ever been to San Antonio?
I haven't,
okay, so
but
San
I've seen
Antonio
pictures.
has this nice river walk. It's a very family-friendly, everybody just calmly walks. They have these gondolas that come down the river. It's a very nice, like, family atmosphere. Now we have all of us from Philadelphia, Marines who are drunk already at this point, and we were doing Eagles chants. We were, fuck Dallas every time we saw somebody with a cowboy shirt on. It was just, it turned into a shit show very, very quickly. So we got kicked out of like 4 or 5 bars. We ended up running into the battalion commander at a bar. Of course, I was a gunny at the time, and everybody else was like lance corporals or corporals, E3s, E4s, and drunk enough, but aware enough, like, okay, we need to leave here very quickly so we all don't get in trouble. From there, we went to a Hooters.
Mm-hmm.
I vaguely remember Hooters. I remember standing in front of the Alamo petting a police horse, and this is like at, probably 11 o'clock midnight. I don't remember anything after that. I don't remember getting on the bus. There's a good picture of me passed out, and one of my FOs has got his head on my lap. And then the next morning I woke up and, had my hand was covered in stamps and, all that kind of stuff. And you're just kind of waking up in the back of a Humvee, and I'm like, where in the fuck am I right now? And here's this big cow or steer, like sitting right next to, the Humvee, and he's just looking at us like, what is wrong with you? But yeah, that's one of my favorite stories to tell, especially to, like, a bunch of my Marines that are from India Battery. There's a lot of good stories. Like, I think every time I read it, I come up with, ones that I think are the best one in the book. And I wanted to do a competition, some kind of contest, for anybody who read the book. And maybe I'll do that here, before I start the next one. Be like, hey, look, submit the story that you think is the funniest, and that whoever submitted that story is going to win something. I don't know what it'll be, Born in a Bar T-shirt or a free book or something. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, you should do that, or have like a poll or something on your Facebook group, and just like have people comment whatever their favorite one was. I think that'd be really cool. But there is a lot of stories in here. Like, how many are there?
Probably 100. I would say there's probably there's probably 100 in both books so far. The second one came out in November. In both of them, there's probably at least 100 stories in there. Yeah.
And is the second one? Do you have a lot of stories in the second one too?
I didn't want to have the second one as much as mine, so I still do have some of my stories in the second one, and then I have a couple that I saved for the third one. But I really wanted it to be more, the second and third one to be more of the other Marines submitting stories. I think I probably could have written a book all, just my own stories, but then what do I do after that? And I kind of thought it was, the better way to go would be to, the first book was like a lot of mine. The first book was a lot of mine because it was easier because I could control the content. I could write everything I knew when it had to be done and submit it, and it was easier to kind of kickstart the whole process. And then the second one was easier to get other people to submit it because, it was word of mouth. Hey, look, I read this book, and, this person has a great story for it. And that's kind of where I was hoping that, the third one would go as well.
Yeah, definitely. You get kind of like that rhythm going of what you're looking for. Do you think you would do something with other branches, or would you suggest another branch doing something like this?
And I actually did. There is kind of a rough plan to do it. My idea was to do 3 for the Marines, and then after that, kind of see where it goes. Somebody in here mentioned Kings Bay. That was my first duty station. It's probably where I kind of kicked off my whole career as an idiot in training. We did a lot of stupid shit there, and I honestly don't know how we left Kings Bay without killing someone or ourselves or getting NJP'd. But I was at we did a reunion, a Kings Bay reunion last year, and I had so much fun catching up with some of those Marines that were there. And I said, this year that, hey, maybe I'll just do, I'll do a Kings Bay edition that's just stories from the Marines of Kings Bay, no matter when they were there. Just do one, and then that money would go towards our next reunion or something like that. So right now, I definitely have 4 books total that are completely already started. And then I've had so many people from other services say, look, I would love to do something like this. Okay, well, you know what, maybe I will. Maybe I'll do a 5th book, and it'll be all services. Any service can do it. Or, maybe I'll help somebody else, under my Born in a Bar. I actually formed my own publishing company, to publish my own book. So if somebody else wanted to do it, I could, give them, help and provide them, some, all the stuff on how to do it on Amazon, and use my LLC to, do everything else. But I would like to do that. I would like to do one for all services, and then, maybe one for you know, police officers, law enforcement, or firefighters, you know, to have their own book, because I know they have all the same stories. So, you know, yeah, I would definitely. It's definitely, you know, a possibility. Whether I'll ever get there because of other priorities, you know, I don't know, but you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just saying it, you know, I think it's gonna happen. I have a cool name for the Navy one. I think you should call it Drink to the Foam.
Yeah.
It makes
Okay.
sense. That would be the perfect title for it. So we are coming up on time, but where can people find you? You said it's listed on Amazon, but do
Yep.
you also have a website?
So for Facebook and Instagram, it's the same name, Born in a Bar, USMC. My website is borninabar.com. Amazon's a pain with this book, and it's been a pain since the very beginning because it's explicit content and, you know, whatever. They kind of gave me a runaround, but if you go into Amazon and you type in Born in a Bar, and then hit search, then you have to hit books, and then it'll be like, you know, number one on there. But for whatever reason, it doesn't come up unless you hit books. There's, you know, yeah, but yeah,
Gotcha.
I haven't really gone any further than Instagram and Facebook just because it's easy. But yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they're the easiest ones. All right, so I'll put the link to your website in the comments or in the story. So Jesse, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for sharing your book and all your ideas and your great stories. Thank you everyone for being on the live, or if you're catching the replay, if you're watching on YouTube or on the podcast. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you have a great week.